Today, we are cracking open the hood on an absolute masterpiece of television, Breaking Bad. We're going to get into the guts of it, looking at the key creative decisions, everything from a throwaway joke to the secret language of color that took a totally normal chemistry teacher and turned him into a TV legend. Everything, and I mean literally everything in Breaking Bad, comes back to this one single question. See, creator Vince Gilligan wasn't just trying to make a show about a cool anti-hero. His whole mission was to show a character fundamentally changing, to take the hero of the story and season by season turn him into the villain. This wasn't just a plot device, it was the entire DNA of the show.
So where does an idea that radical even come from? Well, you might think it was cooked up in some fancy Hollywood boardroom, right? Nope. It all started with a simple, kind of desperate joke between two buddies who were out of a job.
Yeah, the origin story is surprisingly normal. Just look at this. It's 2004, Vince Gilligan's on the phone with a friend, they're both unemployed and probably feeling a little hopeless. His friend cracks a joke about, hey, we should just put a meth lab in an RV and drive around making money. But for Gilligan, a light bulb went off. The crime itself wasn't the interesting part, it was the criminal. Why would a regular guy, a good guy, ever do something that crazy? And boom, by the time he hung up the phone, Walter White was born.
So that one little spark led to what is maybe the show's biggest, most game-changing idea. Gilligan decided he was going to break one of the biggest unwritten rules of television. The idea that your main character, deep down, never really changes.
I mean, think about almost any other TV show you've ever watched. As Vince Gilligan loves to point out, Bart Simpson is the exact same kid today that he was 30 years ago. And there's a comfort in that, right? You know what you're getting. Well, Breaking Bad just chucked that whole idea out the window. The entire point of the show was change. Their pitch was literally, we're going to take Mr. Chips and turn him into Scarface, a hero in a constant downward spiral.
And this quote right here, it gets to the heart of it. If your whole story is about transformation, then that story has to have an end. Gilligan knew this from day one. The journey from good to evil was the story. So once Walter White finally becomes the bad guy, the show has to be over. It was designed from the very beginning to be a complete, finite story.
But Walt's journey wasn't just in the script. The creators used this really subtle but super powerful tool to show us what was going on inside his head. And that tool was color.
And believe me, this was no accident. Gilligan has said that before every single season, they would have these intense palette meetings with everyone from costume designers to set designers. Every single color choice you see on screen was deliberate. It was all part of the visual storytelling, meant to show you exactly where a character was emotionally.
They basically created their own color-coded language for the show. So as you can see, beige and cream, that was Walt's boring, washed-out life at the beginning. Green, that was all about greed, money, and his personal growth into a criminal. Red was a huge signifier for danger and violence. Blue was often tied to Skylar, representing her sadness, but also her loyalty. And of course, you got to talk about Marie's obsessive love for purple, right? It was all about her unique, kind of regal personality.
And you can literally track Walt's entire moral decay just by looking at his shirts. It's amazing. In the first episode, he's just a sea of beige. He's practically invisible. But then, after his first cook, after he stands up to his boss for the first time, what's he wearing? A green shirt, the color of money, of go, of new life. And as he gets deeper and deeper into the game, his clothes get darker and darker, moving into powerful reds and eventually the pure black of Heisenberg. It's all right there.
Okay, so if you're going to tell a story about a man becoming a monster, you have to go to some pretty dark places. And this, as you can imagine, led to some really intense arguments in the writer's room about how far was too far. Gilligan knew that a show that's just about cancer and crystal meth would be, well, pretty much unwatchable. He actually learned this from a show he used to work on that he felt was just too dark, with no breaks. So right from the start, they baked in this incredible dark humor into Breaking Bad. It was like a release valve for the audience, you know? It gave us a chance to laugh and take a breath before the next plunge into darkness.
But there was one moment that really tested the limits for everybody. I'm talking about the death of Jesse's girlfriend, Jane. This scene became a huge point of conflict for the whole team, and it forced them to really ask themselves, where is the point of no return for Walter White?
So get this, Gilligan's original pitch for that scene was even darker. He wanted Walt to physically inject Jane with the heroin that kills her, but his own writers and the studio, they all pushed back. They said, whoa, that is way too dark, way too fast. I mean, it was only season 2. So they found a compromise. Walt doesn't kill her, but he doesn't save her either. He just watches. He lets it happen. And that subtle difference makes it almost more horrifying. He becomes a monster through his inaction.
So after 5 seasons of pushing boundaries and going to these incredibly dark places, the team faced the final boss of television writing, ending the show. How do you possibly craft a satisfying ending for a story this epic?
You know, the greatest gift the writers had was a number, 16. They knew going into that final stretch that they had exactly 16 episodes left to wrap everything up. Gilligan called it a blessing. It meant they could build their ending with real purpose, step by step, instead of just getting canceled out of the blue.
And this is where they had their biggest breakthrough. For a show that was so famous for its insane twists, they realized the ending didn't need some huge, shocking surprise. No, what it needed was to feel appropriate. It needed to feel earned. The best ending wasn't going to be the one that shocked us the most, but the one that felt the most true.
And it all comes full circle. Think about it. The entire show kicks off with a man getting a death sentence from cancer. The writers realized the only way to end it, the most fitting way, was to pay off that promise. The story started with Walt confronting his own mortality, and that's how it had to end. That beautiful symmetry is what makes the finale feel so perfect. It's not a twist. It was the destination all along.
And that really brings us back to the core idea of the whole show. Yeah, the cancer may have been what started the clock ticking for Walter White, but it was his choices, his pride, his ego, his ambition that truly sealed his fate. So the show leaves us with this incredible question to chew on. What was the real disease that destroyed Walter White? Was it the one growing in his lungs, or the one he let grow in his soul?